Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Public Safety Committee meeting for July the 9th, 2025. First thing on our agenda tonight is approval of the minutes from the June 11th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next thing is visitors and public comments. Seeing none, we'll move on to our chief's reports, and we'll start off with our police chief, Chief Dorland.
Thank you, Mr. Copley. In June, the Wadsworth Dispatch Center handled 3,868 incoming calls to the dispatch center. There were 1,615 calls for service that were entered by dispatch, which is a 4% increase to the same time period last year. Year-to-date calls for service, so far in 2025, we have 9,618 calls for service across police, fire, and EMS. That's very similar to the same time period from 2024. Of the 1,615 calls for service, 81% of them were police-related, and 19% of them were fire or EMS-related. The average number of calls by day of the week showed that Thursday was the busiest day with 63 calls, followed closely by Tuesday and Wednesday with 61 average calls for service. The busiest times of the day in June were 12 o'clock noon, followed closely by 2 o'clock p.m. and 8 o'clock a.m. Usually we don't see those morning times generate a huge number of calls for service. And it wasn't that there was an increase in calls for service during the 8 o'clock hour. We just saw a decrease in the number of calls for service that came in during that noon, 1, 2 o'clock time period, where we usually see a higher number of average calls. Looking at the three districts, we consistently see District 2 with the highest number of calls. So for June, there were 563 calls in District 2. Followed by District 3 with 540 calls for service, and the third highest were in District 1 with 398 calls. Any questions about the dispatch numbers?
Not for me.
In June, officers made 286 traffic stops, which is a 43% increase compared to June of 2024. Year-to-date in 2025, there have been 1,894 traffic stops, which is a 33% increase from 2024 at the same time period. And traffic citations are also way up so far this year. We have 621 cites that have been issued year-to-date, and 91 of those were issued in June. Officers handled 28 crash reports, one of which resulted in an injury, and 28 private property crashes. 28 private property crashes is a pretty large number, especially when you look at June of 2024 when there were only 15 private property crashes. Looking at page 3 real quick, at the multi-accident intersection locations. In June, there were 3 intersections where there was 2 accidents in each of those locations. Akron and Hartman Road. One of those crashes was resulting in pretty significant disabling damage to one of the vehicles. Highway 76 also had 2 crashes, and Interstate 76 at the 10-mile marker also had 2 crashes. All of these crashes were property damage only. Going back to page 2 to the investigative report data, I'll just touch on 3 of the categories. First one is the B&E and burglary category. In June, officers handled 3 burglary-related investigations. 2 of those cases were single-family residences, and 1 occurred at a local business. There were 10 drug-related cases in June, with 47 so far year-to-date, and comparing that to year-to-date 2024, which saw 33 drug-related investigations. So we're seeing a pretty large increase in the drug-related cases. There were 5 OVIs in June, And looking at the year-to-date numbers, we're at 45 so far this year, which is a 42% increase year-to-date compared to last year. Are any questions?
No?
Moving forward to the arrest data. In June, there were 38 arrests, which is a 14% decrease from June of 2024. As we tend to see with the arrest numbers, they just fluctuate for different reasons. So I don't see anything significant in the decrease in those numbers between June of this year and June of last year. The call for service, call breakdown by type. The three highest ones were assisting a householder or a motorist with 101 calls for service, 91 suspicious persons or vehicle investigations, and 81 calls for service involving a traffic or a parking complaint. There were numerous opportunities in June to do community outreach for the officers. I'll just touch on three of them. The first one was on June 6th when we had the Safety Forces First Friday event in the square, and that was done in conjunction with Zorro's retirement. The week of June 9th was the Safety Forces Camp for the students who just completed 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grades. That's always a very large event during the year, which involves a lot of officers and a lot of kids throughout the community. And then June 27th was our new K-9 Aries graduation over in Hiram, Ohio. There were two training events in June. The first one was a week-long conference called the Ohio Tactical Officers Association's Public Safety Conference. That's held in Sandusky, and we were able to send 3 officers to this conference this year. And then there was a countywide active killer response training held at Cloverleaf High School. It was conducted by several officers from various departments throughout the county. One of the instructors was Andrew Blueball from our agency, and we were able to send 10 officers to that training. The Officer of the Month for May was Officer Grant Rospert. Officer Rospert is one of our newer officers, and as we like to see with our newer, younger officers, lots of great self-initiated activity. He's consistently led the department in self-initiated activity during the year. In May, in conjunction with the Click It or Ticket campaign, he made 119 traffic stops and issued 64 traffic citations for a myriad of offenses. Officer Rospert's supervisor states that he exhibits a positive attitude and a friendly demeanor to the public and to his coworkers. He consistently volunteers to fill overtime, work extra details, and handle special assignments. And again, that's just something we like to see with the newer officers, so that's a good sign for him. And he's been doing very well for us since he was hired. Are there any questions about any of that data or any of those items?
Questions, gentlemen?
None for me.
Thank you.
Does that complete your report?
It does.
Okay, so now we'll move on then to our fire chief, Chief Linder.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. So for the data for the fire department for June, we had a total of 20 calls. 17 of those were within the city, 2 in the township. We provided mutual aid on 1 occasion and received mutual aid on 1. So when you look at the total runs year to date, we're slightly behind, about 10% of where we were this time last year in 2024. Officer responses, our checkouts, we had 14. Inspection activities, 12. Car seat and public education, 11. Our average response time for the month was 5:47. Average firefighter on duty was 5.6. Average firefighter recall, just under 3. And average firefighter turnout total for all calls was about 8.5. So our average firefighter on duty, when we compare that to last year, we're about 4% above. Average firefighter recall, we're still lagging behind where we were last year at 18% below. And then our total firefighter turnout is slightly below at 4% from where we were in 2024.
Are we bringing on more part-time people?
We're in the process, yes. I don't want to steal the thunder of
That
the
may
next one.
change those numbers a little bit.
Feel free to steal.
Yes, it's been a long process, but currently we have 3 that are actively in the works, waiting on a couple things. One just has to finish his psychological test, and then he would be good to go. And then there's 2 that we're waiting. What kind of holds up some is the agility test. We no longer do that in-house. We do a certificate from either Start State or Tri-C. Eligibility, trying to get them to do it. They only offer it once a month. Sometimes doesn't work in their schedules. So we're waiting on those for additional 2 other members.
Thank you.
Yep. Type of property calls, breakdowns, again, residential is the bulk of our properties that we respond to for most calls. Our call volume over time, our busiest time of the day by far was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 25 that averaged. Breakdown for the incidents by station, Station 1 at 207 and 92 at Station 2. Any questions on the first page?
Nothing there, gentlemen?
No, nothing.
On the second page, our incident type just gives you a breakdown of the types of calls for service through the national reporting system. We had a total of 299. Again, EMS, rescue and EMS takes the bulk of those calls. Looking at our EMS data on the right-hand side, we had 128 in City 1, 68 calls in City 2, and 42 in City 3. So that gave us a total of 238 within the city. We had 30 EMS calls in the township, so total 268. And that gives us our yearly data of 1,565. Breakdown by district, again, City 1, which is mostly all around downtown, that is the biggest bulk of our call volume. Average response time was just under 4 minutes at 3:53 for the month. Mutual aid, we did not provide mutual aid for EMS calls for the month. We did receive mutual aid on 4 occasions, 66 second ambulance calls, 14 third, 2 fourth ambulance calls. Looking at those numbers compared to 2024, the only trending that's starting to see pretty much this year is our third ambulance calls are still slightly higher than where we were this time last year. Everything else is pretty comparable from what I see. Any questions on the second page? All right. Moving on to the third page, our hospital transports. The majority of our calls were transported here to Wadsworth at 79 calls. That gave us a year-to-date 397. So haven't figured out why, but there is definitely from last year to this year, an increase of our transports to Wadsworth, which in one sense, it's a good thing. We can turn around, get back in service a lot quicker than actually going to Akron and dealing with the construction. So we're seeing an increase in that. Our second highest hospital that we transport to is Barberton. So that's the only 2 big numbers on that I saw. So moving down, looking at our EMS yearly comparison, we are above where we were in 2024. So we have a total of 1,564. That's 103 calls above where we were last year, or 7%. Looking at our total calls for service, this includes both fire and EMS. Consistent with EMS, we are at 7% above this time where we were last year, about 117 additional calls. And then moving down to our ALS, BLS data, ALS calls, 116, basic life supports were 76. For our Narcan, we did have 1 overdose patient, provided Narcan on 1 occasion on that. And on the right-hand side, just our squad usage. Medic 1 was the squad that handled most of the calls. They do a rotation with those. Medic 2 was slightly down. It was getting some preventive maintenance done, and then there was 1 mechanical issue that had to get fixed. So that number is slightly down. Daily call volume, we had a tie. Sunday, Monday tied at 50 So Sunday, Monday were our two busiest days, with a close third on Thursday at 48. Any questions on that page? All right, moving on to the last page, some of the in-house training we did, dry hydrant testing. We were able to bring the new safety director in to meet our members, give a little talk. I thought that went well. Some EMS, we did some skills labs, death notification, and then some protocol review. We did have 2 members attend some outside training. Assistant Chief Potter attended the second phase of the aviation first responder that was actually held down in the Columbus area. They actually got hands-on with the planes. And then we had another member go down to the fire academy and do some aerial operations and maintenance training. Some of our big events, I know Chief Dorland already mentioned those. The First Friday Safety Forces was another one. A Blue Tip Parade went well for us. And then just some other PR events that we held. We were able to give kudos to a crew. Amar, John Bodie, Mike Dieger, and Brian helped in the delivery of a baby girl. So mom and baby is doing good. Dad, not so sure. But that was our pretty much events. And then our firefighter EMT award for the second quarter will be coming out next month. So the officers have to vote on that. Anything on that? All right, looking at the part-time open shifts. So for June, the part-time open shifts, filling those, we were at about 48%. Looking at our open shifts to fill full-time slots and all the part-timers, we were actually up compared to the past couple months at 68% for the month of June. Any other questions?
Question, Jim?
No?
Then on the agenda, we also had, we can continue talking about the assisted living care facilities for the lift assist. So the past couple months that we've been monitoring this, from what I am seeing, I don't see that it's a huge issue. We may get called out for an invalid assist, but out of those, not all of them turn into that. Some of them actually, we do some transports, or we get refusals. We'll evaluate them and get a refusals, which in turn, there is a billing for the refusal portion. But for June, we did have 2 calls that came in as an invalid assist when the crews got there. The patients were evaluated, and then 2 signed refusals were received on that. Just not sure what other additional information I can give you on that. In May, we had 5 calls. Out of those 5 calls, 2 of them were signed refusals. 2 of those individuals we transported, and 1 individual was helped up prior to EMS arrival. And then going back in April, we had 3 calls for an invalid assist. Of those 3, 1 of them was transported. 2 of them were what I would consider as a true lift assist. There was no refusal signed on that, so there was no billing on that one.
Now, you're talking, are these all invalid assists, not just in care facilities? That was the question originally.
These are skilled nursing facilities.
Just strictly skilled nursing?
Yes. This does not count the general public. I thought that's what we were discussing.
Skilled nursing, that's what I was asking.
Yes, these are all just strictly skilled nursing facilities.
Okay. And I also asked for the cost per EMS call.
So, did some research. What we ended up coming up with, found a study and out of University of Southern Maine. They did this, basically an estimate of the startup and annual service costs for ambulance agencies. We took that. We also compared with our budget, our run number, pretty consistent. If you look at the past 3 years, our cost per ambulance call, I would say, is about $850. It is starting to trend up, as budgets, everything goes up cost-wise. I would say we're about $850 a call.
And we're charging for treat no transport or, invalid assist calls, what are we charging? 120? It used to be.
Yes, if I remember right, there was a difference between the township and city in the last change that
The last ordinance.
that made, I think it's 100 and,
So we're actually losing $700 per call, or $730 per call by going to these skilled facilities when they should have people there to take care of these things.
so there is a concern, and I know not only the population community has this, but it's a concern for me in some facilities is if they don't call us, there is potential for other injuries, whether it's their staff picking them up or they wait and not call and that patient can become worse. It's just a fear of that I have, that there's additional downside of if we don't call them for lift assist. So now they're like, oh, we don't want to get charged, we don't want to pay. They stay on the ground longer, causes additional injuries.
That's patient abandonment on their part. I mean,
Through a skilled nursing
they're liable
facility.
for that. That's not our fault.
Correct. You as a legislation, you have the right, I mean, we could do something like the false alarm ordinance that, you enact. If we could build the actual facility, I would think.
Well,
we'd
that's
want
what
it.
they do out in the ones that I've talked to and stuff like that. They build the actual facility.
Yeah.
They're given a document that says, when you call for an invalid assist, you're being billed.
Yeah. I think, my opinion, I don't know, I'll leave it to you, if we would have to get the law department in to make sure everything.
Well, that's maybe something that the safety director can take a look at over the next month or so.
And then-
I just can't see our taxpayers having to pay an extra $750 to help someone that's from Akron in a skilled nursing facility. That person never paid taxes here or anything like that there. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
And I think you have to look at the risk of our employees also getting hurt, just like their employees. I mean, that's a cost factor too.
Yeah,
So,
And their employees is not our responsibility.
correct.
I mean, but they're charging people big money to be in these places. I mean, so that's why I bring this up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if that's something that committee and the council wants to approach,
I think we could
review
review
it
it.
and-
Research, but I mean, just from what you've given me so far, I mean, $750 call. Yeah, it may only be 2 or 3 calls a month, but that's going to add up over 10 years. So, gentlemen, what's your thoughts?
If we had, or we should have conversations from those facilities as well. I mean, I don't think we do it in a vacuum, but if they know that
Correct.
we're starting to raise concerns and, the fees aren't where they should be, or what it costs us to make that call, they might have some opinions. They probably are aware, but, it'd be nice if they're aware that we're thinking about it.
Yeah, I can definitely have those conversations with all of them.
I think probably the biggest issue with that is those staffs, the administrative staffs change on a weekly basis at some of these places. So, you talk to one person, it never gets up the chain. That's been an ongoing issue with a lot of those facilities.
Right.
So it's hard, I agree with
But if you
you.
have a conversation with them and something's coming down the pipe, as soon as
Right.
they start getting invoices, it will get up the chain. But
Well, I'm definitely all in favor of notifying them that this is coming.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, I can definitely have those talks with them.
Mr.
I'd like
Chairman,
to
I
keep
would
this
just,
on the agenda.
sure. And I would just add too that estimated cost, I think I would emphasize the estimated, because there are some complex calculations that have to go into that in terms of how do you account for station cost. When we essentially
Right.
use this study as a model to say,
Yeah.
year in and year out, you're not buying an ambulance every year, but over time, what's the depreciation and how do you associate that with EMS? Depreciation on EMS's portion of their building,
And
what is
maintenance cost on the
maintenance
vehicles
costs,
and all that.
new heart
monitors
monitors.
and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of.
There's a lot that
hidden
goes
costs.
into that, so
Yeah.
I would just say at a very basic level, it was, what has the average EMS budget been for the last 3 years? What are the average call runs over that period of time? A rough estimate in terms of those depreciation costs associated with that. So while those seem to be consistent with that report and that model that they used for that study, I would just say emphasis on estimate. And we could drill into that some more, but I think for the purposes of discussion, it gives us an approximate number
Right.
to be
Yeah,
talking.
that's just a good starting point.
Yeah.
That's a good starting. Okay, yeah, we'll just keep that on the agenda then for next month. Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen, on that?
I'm good.
We'll move on then to staffing updates. We'll turn it over to Safety Director Chafin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the police side, obviously a big focus right now is on our promotional processes. We have the new chief, Dave Dorland, here now, and now that that process is complete, we will be moving on to the lieutenant promotional process. We're hoping to have that announcement out this week. That process should hopefully be completed by the end of August, early September, is the goal for that. For the committee's benefit, a lot of that has to do with the outside testing companies that are required and what their availability is. That will result in requiring a sergeant's promotional process, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that my move as well creates an opening on the patrol side as well. So I would look for those test announcements around the end of the summer, early fall as well. That would be good timing for us in terms of looking ahead at academy classes if we need to send that person to an academy. So that's what our agenda on the hiring and promotional side looks like for the police department. The firefighter paramedic
Wait a
process.
minute, before you move on, I
Yes.
just seen that the Medina County Career Center is doing a police academy.
They are, yes.
Are we going to look into using that?
So we've done a cursory look. It is slightly more expensive. So for the committee, our preferred academy of choice for
OSP.
several years has been OSP. As it stands right now, there's no cost to send somebody to OSP. I am not saying that I am here to get the cheapest training for our officers, but I would say that OSP also does a really nice job in terms of instructor selection. You get more than your normal OPATA hours in the mat room for defensive tactics, on the range, driving and things like that. So I would consider that to be a very high-level, well-respected academy that also comes with the benefit of we're not actually paying to attend that academy, aside from
Wages, yeah.
the wages and some other ammunition and things
Yeah.
like that. We currently have somebody in Lorraine County Community College. We had a recent graduate that's an FTO as well there. That we've used just based on timing because OSP is generally running August and February. So if you have somebody that gets hired in between there, in the past we've looked at the University of Akron, Lorraine County Community College. The University of Akron is roughly $5,400, but there's some additional fees as well for parking passes and other student-related fees, so it's a little bit more expensive than that. Lorraine, Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's about $6,200 if I remember correctly. There's some other benefits with that, so we're not providing ammunition at their academy, so a little offset there. The Sheriff's Department, or the Medina County Career Center that I think is going to be managed by, in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department.
Yes.
I think it's coming in close to $7,000,
Okay.
so it's going to be a little more expensive. It does offer a quicker turnaround than what you might get at Lorraine County Community College, and it's certainly a better commute than that. But I'll say when you see those shorter windows, that generally means that you're running longer classes, or in conjunction with the Monday through Friday classes, you're also running a weekend class. So then you're incurring the other hidden cost of overtime for that individual as well too. So just apples to apples front end cost comparison. It is a little bit more expensive than the two non-OSP academies, and certainly much more expensive than OSP. But I think a lot of those decisions come down to strictly timing. We don't want to sit and wait on somebody.
That's what I
we
was
want to
saying.
get it started. So I think given its location and at least our familiarity with some of the instructors or who the academy commander is going to be, I would certainly not write it off and would certainly be open to using it. It would just come down to a discussion of timing, cost, and what we want to do at that time. So.
I just thought I'd ask. I just seen they was firing it up again and everything, so I thought.
Which is good. I think it's good to have more options, and
Yeah.
because we've had some crunches where the timing didn't align for any of the three to really be effective for us. So more options is generally better.
Thank you.
On the firefighter paramedic full-time process, we are continuing with that. We still have an active list and are looking to hopefully make some progress there very soon. Chief already touched on the part-time, but we've got 3 candidates there, 2 waiting for their agility tests and 1 waiting for the psychological. On the dispatch process update, we have 2 candidates that have moved into the background phase and possibly a 3rd that we will be moving there soon as well too.
Any questions? Go to
No, sir.
staffing. Okay, number 5 takes us to park speed limits.
Park speed limits, the intention with this on the agenda was initially legislative oriented, but I'll treat it today just as more of a heads up and putting it on the committee's radar. We do have park speed limits. There's signage that's out there right now, but in examining and going through the ordinances, there's not a specific ordinance that touches on that, which would require the officers, if they were going to issue a citation, to use speeds reasonable for conditions, that section of the speed enforcement, which I think potentially opens up a lot of room for effectively articulating those conditions and why that individual was stopped and ultimately cited. In exploring this issue further, it sounds like there will actually need to be an engineering study done. So that's a conversation I was having with our engineering department today in terms of what's the feasibility of being able to do that internally and how long and timeliness would that take, or if we could potentially combine that with some of our other ongoing engineering projects as well too. So once we have some more discussions with that and ultimately have an engineering study that confirms the need for the lower speed limits in those areas, then I'll likely be back at the committee to continue that discussion. But for tonight's purposes, just wanted to put that on the committee's radar. So that
Let's just keep it on the agenda then.
Sounds good.
Okay. Questions, gentlemen?
No.
Okay. That moves us on to number 6, which is abatement of a nuisance, demolition of structures.
So this is, I think, an important topic. And I would also like to highlight our new code enforcement officer, Mario Caruso. Since joining the city, he has been very proactive, which I would consider to be maybe your minor nuisance-oriented issues, but he has also been very proactive in some of our larger ones, as the committee may or may not be aware. There is at least 1, maybe 2 properties that here in the last year have gotten a lot of attention from neighbors. I believe they may have even reached out to our own safety committee members here to articulate their concern. And so with that, Mario has really taken a very proactive approach. And the reason I have this on the agenda tonight is because as we continue to move in this direction with the abatement of a nuisance, and by abatement I am referring to condemnation and ultimately potentially a demolition of a structure, City Council actually has a role to play in that process. And so tonight was just sort of taking the first step of, I guess, an educational approach. Admittedly, as police chief, I did not spend a lot of time in this section of our ordinances. And so I would like to start to bring the committee up to speed. So if and when it does get in front of council, hopefully our members are aware of the process and have some semblance of what has happened before it reaches council's desk, if you will. So I have put together a handout here for you that is focused on Chapter 156 in our ordinances, and that is the chapter that is going to focus on the actual nuisance abatement. And so I won't go through word for word here, but did want to highlight some things, and really the overall purpose, which I think is important to keep in mind, and that is the purpose of the Nuisance Abatement Code is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and to prevent the blighting of the city's neighborhoods by providing for the removal, repair of insecure, unsafe, or structurally defective buildings or other structures or other public nuisances. So that's kind of our guiding principle with the code. I've pulled out some definitions that I think might be important for the committee members. Public nuisance, unfit for human occupancy, and an unsafe building or structure. Again, I'm not going to read those word for word. You gentlemen can certainly do that. But I do want to begin to talk about what the process looks like before we get to this ultimate idea of condemnation and demolition. The process is going to begin with an inspection by our code enforcement officer. Based on that inspection, that is going to result in a notice to abate these code enforcement issues that he or she has addressed. And when that notice of abatement happens, I think it's important to highlight in this section, which is 156.04, that individual, that property owner, has a right to appeal that. And that needs to be done within the first 15 days. And so you're essentially looking at what will turn into a 15 to 30-day process where they have the right to appeal. I also have pulled out some language here that describes the Property Maintenance Appeals Board, the code that sets that up, and some of the timeliness associated with that. So let's say that we have gone through this process, we have notified the property owner, any lien holders of the issues that need to be abated. They have not been abated. That appeal to the Property Maintenance Board was unsuccessful. What happens next? That's going to be a placarding of the property. It's also going to come in with an order to vacate, and that may also result in the city actually taking steps to board up that property to prevent people from staying there. Once we get to the abatement of the nuisance or the demolition of the structure, that section for the committee's benefit is 156.11. And that is actually going to be where the code enforcement officer is going to come to City Council and ask for this property to be abated. Some things that I would highlight in here is that this cannot be done through the emergency procedure, so it's going to have to go through all of the readings, and there's going to have to be a public hearing where the individual that would be affected by the individual or individuals affected by this can also appeal to City Council. So again, just kind of bringing this to your attention, explaining the process. I think it's important for the council members to know that there are certain steps that have taken place, that there's been an appeals process before it gets to this point. I think that's important. This 156 section is also very closely related to 152, which is the property maintenance section. Again, I've pulled out the purpose for the committee of that section, but also I just wanted to give the committee an idea of what maintenance topics are covered, because as it relates to 156, these could be used to help justify that they are, for example, unfit for human occupancy. And so with the property maintenance code, which is usually a misdemeanor or civil violation that comes with a fine, those collective, and a large number of those could certainly lead to where you have a public nuisance or unfit for human occupancy or an unsafe building or structure. But those property maintenance topics include things like the maintenance of exteriors of structures that involve windows, doors, dilapidation, sanitary conditions, disposal of garbage, rodents, foundations, roof, drainage, parked vehicles, outdoor storage, walkways, driveways, swimming pools, bathroom facilities, electric service, plumbing, heating, utilities, and fire safety requirements, to list some of those. So again, I'm just putting this on the committee's radar because as we now have somebody in the property code enforcement and somebody who has been very proactive, there are certain properties that have been what I would describe as a nuisance to their streets and neighborhoods for an extended period of time. And I think it is time for us to start enforcing those code violations. And I would not be surprised if several months down the road we didn't have a property on council's agenda. So again, just beginning that educational process. Again, admittedly something that is new for me as well too. So the committee members, other councilmen have questions on what that would look like as you start to familiarize with that section, please let me know and we can kind of try to get those addressed and answered.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Nothing for me.
Okay, that brings us to other. We're starting with the safety director.
Nothing further?
Chief Linder.
I have nothing.
Chief Dorland.
Nothing from me.
Mr. Rossman.
I've got nothing.
Mr. Yurchek.
I just have a couple quick items. Number one is with CIS no longer being there, I don't know if it should live in this department, but are the school no right on red during school hour signs going to be addressed on
So
time?
that, I was going to say that is something that would fall under my purview in conjunction with the Director of Public Service. I've already started to have some of those conversations with our streets departments. They're in the process of identifying those signs and should be sending sort of a list with their recommendations over as to what they believe they should be, whether they could be removed, changed. There's a large number of crosswalks that are associated with that. I think part of that consideration may also be having some general idea of what CAS may be used for. Some of those crosswalks could become beneficial, but maybe the signage associated with them needs to change. So something that is on the radar and something that I hope maybe in the next couple weeks to have some more in-depth discussions with the street department as to what those recommendations might be.
Okay, thank you. And then secondly, any reports, complaints, positive things about the traffic with the sheets opening up? We noticed anything crazy up there?
Chief, I can defer to you from your perspective.
I'm not familiar with any complaints that we've had with sheets. I think we had the one promotional day where they had lower price of gasoline during the grand opening, but I think we expected maybe some heavier traffic, but we didn't have any complications as far as I'm aware.
Okay, good.
And I have nothing, so entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We are adjourned.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.